If Trump ends up winning, we're going to keep taxes where they are. That's been great for technology companies. Plus, they won a big lawsuit in a big election in California with Proposition 22 that allows technology companies to classify their freelance workers as contractors, not employees. That's huge for their bottom line. So that's going to be a huge cost savings. And then health insurance stocks have gone through the roof because Obamacare, one way or the other, is going to look like it gets preserved.
So, Caleb, let me ask you about this because you mentioned the stimulus just very quickly a moment ago. Whatever happens with this presidential election, whatever happens in Congress, American businesses are going to need more help. What's the sense on Wall Street? Are they expecting that once we get past this election, we'll actually make some progress on a stimulus package? Sort of what's the investor and Wall Street expectation there?
Yeah, I think without question, I think if Trump manages to get reelected, he'll pass the stimulus bill relatively quickly. It'll be on the smaller order of magnitude, closer to what the Republicans put forth in their bill, about $1 trillion, mostly directed at industries, but also with some stimulus payments to households and individuals. So we'll get that. If it's Biden, it'll come and it'll be a bigger package. It'll be February or so, maybe March, depending on how long it takes to get through. It'll be a much bigger package, more broadly accessible, and also directed at municipalities, cities, and states that have had a lot of issues and are probably, many of them, facing some very dire economic times.
Caleb, let me ask you this. It's Thursday. Normally on a Thursday, jobless claims would be our leading business headline, but the election has just kind of turned everything on its head and put that on a back burner to the election. Let's talk quickly about what we saw today. Jobless claims pretty steady from last week.
Yeah, 750,000 people filed for first-time unemployment claims in the last week. We are almost 8 months into this pandemic, and we're still having numbers over 600,000, 700,000 in terms of initial jobless claims. So unemployment is still a major problem. Tomorrow, we're going to get the October jobs report. It'll probably show a slight dip in unemployment, which is a good thing, but we're still not adding jobs back as fast as we'd lost them. And the big area of concern is in the services industry: restaurants, hotels, travel companies, leisure and hospitality, bars and restaurants. That's where the pain has been. That's where the pain has been for low-income workers who are in those fields. And that's not where the hiring has been, because the recovery, as you know, Allison, has been very uneven. Good at the top, good for the digital economy, not good for service employees and frontline workers.
Caleb, I have to ask you, because I didn't mention this off the top. I should have, but I was a little surprised to see you. You are the editor of Investopedia. I'm just dying to know, what kinds of things are people looking up this week? What questions do people have with all that is going on with our economy, with politics in our country right now?
Yeah, we've been tracking investor interest in stories through all the time, but especially in the past week leading up to the election and all the day through November 3rd. And what they've been looking up as the race has gotten, the polls were a little bit wider. They were looking up the tax implications of a Biden presidency. They were looking up the difference in the economic plans between Trump and Biden. They were also looking up capital gains taxes. It looked like Biden was surging a little bit on November 3rd. They started to become very serious and very concerned about what's going to happen to their tax rate if he's elected. It may end up not happening, but he's been promising to raise the tax rate for people making $400,000 a year or more. He's also going to raise that corporate tax rate back up to 29%. So people have been very concerned about that. But as the polls got even tighter, as the race got even tighter on November 3rd, we had a ton of search for Marxism and socialism, because that has been the tag that the Trump administration and President Trump himself has put on Biden and Kamala Harris. So people were looking up socialism and Marxism to see if that was exactly what they were going to get if Biden indeed become elected, which is completely fascinating to us because it's not what they're pitching at all, but that's what people started to look for.
Caleb, at least the folks who are looking up questions or have questions about taxes, I feel like I've sent them your way. I've had a ton of friends text me, are my taxes going up, or is this going to happen? What's this case scenario? And so, you know, just send them to Investopedia. You guys have better answers than I do in these situations. Caleb, look, I know a lot of people are uncertain right now. They're not sure about what's going on. But the good news, at least over the past couple of days, is if you have money in the markets, you've been doing okay. So thank you. I know we talked, couple of weeks ago, and I said we'd have you back on for good news because we always have you on for bad news, and here you are.
Yeah, and I'm wearing green for you, and I've got a green couch for you today, too, just to make sure we were doubly covered. So it's good to be on a good news day for the markets.
Love it.
And for individual investors, it's been we're almost flat for the year. So despite everything that's happened, if you just held in there and were patient, you've done okay.
We're at least in the green in the last couple of days, and you're backing it up. Caleb, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being on tonight.
Of course, Allison. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall,
We're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
All right, let's take a look at the numbers in the states that are still too close to call tonight. NBC News political editor Carrie Dan is back with us. Carrie, what state would you like to start with at this hour?
So let's start in Georgia because we just got some new vote there. As of 5:45 p.m., the Secretary of State said that there were 36,000 outstanding votes. Now, with this new vote that we've just come in, Trump's margin has narrowed to 3,600 votes. This is going to be vanishingly close, it seems. Like this is going to be a very, very down-to-the-wire race. We're looking and analyzing at that vote as it comes in. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that in the state of Georgia, either candidate can request a recount of the vote if it is within 0.5% of a margin between the two candidates. We think that that is something the Secretary of State said that they are preparing for that. If one of the candidates requested it, it would have to be up to 2 days after the vote is certified. So keep an eye out for that possibility of a recount. By the way, the Georgia Secretary of State's office announced that they will have a news conference tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. So, of course, we will be watching that as well. Pennsylvania, you know, we're still waiting. The Secretary of State said earlier today, we got to stay tuned. They are counting now. It really is a waiting game. Trump's margin in Pennsylvania is down to about 75,000 votes. And, you know, it just depends on where those votes come from. We're looking at Philadelphia. We're also looking at the counties surrounding Philly, these collar counties, as they're known. It's a place that Joe Biden has been doing very well. There's still a lot of outstanding votes there, as well as in the city of Philadelphia. As those votes come in, just got to see if Biden is hitting his numbers to catch up to Donald Trump in those mail-in votes that you can see on your screen, sort of that blue lower right-hand corner. That's where we're looking for a lot of votes coming in Pennsylvania. In Nevada, this has been all day long. I've seen on Twitter lots of people complaining about the pace at which Nevada is counting. They're just being very deliberate. They're taking their time. They're doing it right. There's about 150,000 votes still out in the state. Biden still has a narrow lead of about 11,000 votes. Most of that vote, by the way, is coming from Clark County, home to Las Vegas. We've been talking about that county for the last couple of weeks. This morning, with great sort of fanfare, they released a set of votes. Everybody was watching to see, okay, is this new vote released this morning going to change the game here? That vote this morning went for Biden about 2-1. So that didn't really do anything to change the narrative that that Joe Biden has the advantage here. And you can kind of see maybe that the Trump campaign may think the same thing. They were very bullish going into the election and even on election night about their chances here. And then in the hours after the election, they said, we think we're going to be able to catch up. They've changed their argument now to mostly talking about accusations of voter fraud in that state and not necessarily talking about the outstanding vote in Clark County and elsewhere in the state. And then there's Arizona, another place that we're just playing the waiting game.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for vote out of Maricopa County. Now, we are expecting a new tranche of votes at 7 p.m. local, 9 p.m. Eastern. So keep an eye out for that. Right now, Biden has about a 65,000 margin of votes there. He's still in the lead. We're not expecting probably to make a call here tonight. The problem is that we just don't know. Maricopa particularly, it's a big county, and there's parts of it that are much more conservative, parts of it that are much more Democratic. Overall, it's a swing county. We don't know exactly what precincts that outstanding vote is coming from. So we've just kind of got to wait and see where that vote in Maricopa comes from. But again, this is another case where you'd rather be Biden than Trump. We just got to wait for them to count the votes.
Carrie, just unbelievable. I mean, what's going on in all of these states, fascinating to watch. But I want to ask, can our control room pull up the race in Georgia again? Because, Carrie, I'm just so fascinated by this. We have been saying this throughout the evening. But, look, we knew we were going to be talking about Pennsylvania. We knew we would have been talking about Michigan and Wisconsin. But what's going on in Georgia here, I mean, 3,486 votes. Look how close that is. This is absolutely wild.
It's very close. This is a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since Bill Clinton in 1992. Now, I can tell you that going into Election Day, Democrats were pretty bullish about Georgia because what they said is, one, look back at what happened in 2018. Stacey Abrams making her run for governor, just barely missing the mark there. She spent the last 2 years organizing voters, motivating voters, trying to get African-American voters to head out to the polls and make sure that there's voter access. I think a lot of Democrats are giving her a lot of credit for the work that she's done over the past 2 years. But look, Georgia is a state where you've got a big urban center in Atlanta. It's got big suburbs. They're diverse. They're well-educated. They're affluent. And they're places that are increasingly breaking for Democrats. So even going into the election, there were a lot of Dems who would say to reporters, look, we think we have a better chance there than in Florida, even in a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat since '92. They went into this thinking we might be able to pull this off.
Yeah, and listen, we still don't know yet, but they have come pretty darn close, even if they don't win. This is just an absolutely incredible state to watch. I hate to play favorites, but Georgia is my new favorite state to keep an eye on because we've just gotten interesting updates, obviously, in the Senate races as well. We've got 2 Senate races look like they're going to a runoff in January. I mean, the state has just been fascinating top to bottom.
That's right. I feel a little bit for the voters of Georgia. Particularly if you're a voter in Georgia 6, which had that big special election in 2017, you basically haven't gone for more than about 3 or 4 months without being bombarded with political ads. And we're going to go into this holiday season with 2 runoff elections. It could be for control of the Senate. We don't know that quite yet, but it's shaping up to kind of look like that. If you're a TV station in Georgia, you're going to have a great Christmas because hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be flowing into that state.
You just reminded me of a few of my friends in local news who I need to reach out to, Carrie, because they are probably really buckling up, bracing for a really long couple of months ahead. Because once we get a break, they're going to have to do the yeoman's work there. But it really just is incredible when you think about how often folks in Georgia have had to vote, and that they probably will not be done this week. Carrie, thank you so very much for being with us. I know we're going to check in with you again. I'd like to bring in NBC News reporter Priscilla Thompson, because she is in Atlanta, Georgia, which, Priscilla, as we've been saying, Georgia has absolutely become one of our favorite states to watch because it is just so fascinating. I mean, the difference between Trump and Biden right now, so thin. Could you just talk us through what could trigger a recount there in Georgia and sort of what folks are bracing for?
Well, Allison, folks here are feeling just like you on pins and needles. I can't tell you how many people we've passed on that have passed us on the street asking for updates here. And you wanted to talk about that recount. So in order for a recount to take place here, it happens whenever candidates are within 0.5% of one another. And what we're seeing now with Joe Biden and President Trump literally about 3,600, 4,000 votes apart, that's only a few percentage points. And so either of those candidates could call for a recount. We heard state officials earlier today signaling that that is something that they are preparing for. They think it is very likely to happen in this presidential race. And so that's sort of what we're looking forward to. Right now, there are around 18,000, really closer to 19,000 ballots remaining to be counted. Officials have said we should have results by the end of tonight. We don't know if that's going to happen or if it's going to be earlier in the morning or even into tomorrow. But what we do know is that officials are already looking ahead to what comes next. After those results are released, after the news networks like NBC begin to project a winner, they are preparing for a recount and also preparing for two runoff races. They need to get absentee ballots out for those and begin preparing for another set of races that's going to be happening in December and January here. Allison?
Yeah, Priscilla, let's talk about that a little more, because all of us are just hoping that, you know, we'll get through this presidential election and things will calm down a little bit. In Georgia, they're going to keep on going through the new year, it looks like.
Yeah, and I heard you talking to Carrie Dan, and she was talking about, you know, folks spending their holidays looking at all these political ads on TV. There are a number of people that I've talked to in and around Atlanta and the suburbs saying that they were so ready for this to be over. They were tired of seeing all of those ads, and, you know, they may be looking forward to much more of that, especially if both of these Senate races go to a runoff. We already know one of them, that special election, is going to a runoff. Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler will be facing off against Democratic hopeful Raphael Warnock. And then we're looking at this other race between Republican incumbent David Perdue and Democrat Jon Ossoff. It's unclear if that's going to go to a runoff at this point. It really depends what needs to happen here in Georgia in order for a candidate to win outright. They have to get more than 50% of the vote. So if David Perdue falls below that 50%, even if it's 49.9%, he could be headed to a runoff, and that's even if Jon Ossoff does not actually get more votes than him. It all comes down to those percentages. So we'll be watching very closely as these results are coming in, not only to see what's happening with the presidential, but also how those results are impacting that Senate race and whether we're looking forward to a runoff.
Priscilla, Allison? I know the traditional strategy is for the candidates to blitz people with ads in situations like this, but you have to wonder if maybe the better plan going into the holidays is not to bother everybody. Maybe they'll vote for the candidate who just leaves them alone. Everyone in Georgia sounds so exhausted. Right. Priscilla, I know it's going to be a long night for you, and we'll, of course, be checking in to see if you get any more results there. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison.
The race may be too close to call in Pennsylvania. Earlier this evening, Pennsylvania's Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar saying in a news conference, we're in a very good place with the mail-in and absentee ballots, but not quite there yet. NBC News correspondent Rahema Ellis is in Philadelphia. MSNBC senior national correspondent Chris Jansing is in Harrisburg. Rahema, a large number of mail-in ballots still being counted in Philadelphia. What's the latest on the ground there?
Well, the Secretary of State said in a news conference not so long ago that they've been counting hundreds of thousands of ballots today, and they're going to keep counting them late into this evening. I want you to hear directly from her about how this counting is coming along. Take a listen.
We're in a very good place with the mail-in and absentee ballots, but not quite there yet. But then there's still going to be provisional ballots, the military and overseas ballots, and so forth. So the closer to the race is, the longer it takes. But I think what I've said all along is that the overwhelming majority of ballots will be counted by Friday. I still think that we're ahead of the schedule, and we actually already have counted the overwhelming majority of ballots, but because it's a close race, it's not quite clear yet who the winner is.
Yeah, in fact, to that point of not quite clear who the winner is, but one of the things we do know that's clear, that is that the president's margin of victory is shrinking here as so many of those results are coming in on those ballots. Another thing that's been happening here that's noteworthy, we should point out, and that is the Trump campaign has been mounting a pretty intense campaign to try to intervene in the counting of ballots. You know that they had presented to the court here in Philadelphia a petition to make certain that they could have more poll watchers closer to those who are counting the mail-in ballots. This morning, a state court ruled in favor of the Trump campaign, saying that they could have poll watchers in who were 6 feet from those who are counting the ballots instead of what the city and election officials had of something like 20 feet apart. So because that came in this morning, the city of Philadelphia, which they're counting these ballots at the convention center behind me, what they did was they paused the count for a while because they said they wanted to take a look at the language of this court order. Once they had a chance to do that, they resumed the counting. So it is interesting that that's going on. And again, that the Trump campaign has been very vigorous here in Philadelphia and across the state, trying to intervene in how this counting is going along. But as you just heard the Secretary of State say, they are continuing the count and they are narrowing the number of mail-in ballots that have to be counted. And they think they're going to have that number by Friday. And that's new because they thought it might take longer than that for them to come up with a final number.
Rahema, folks on pins and needles waiting to get those results from Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, Chris, we have certainly heard a lot from the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania today. What are you hearing from local Democrats? How do they expect this race to play out?
Yeah, it's interesting to have watched the change over the last 24 hours because yesterday I would have told you they're feeling good. Today I would say they were feeling quite confident. And it started really this morning when I talked to 2 Democratic electeds, and they said they were hearing and seeing early signs that all of the mail-in votes were skewing heavily toward Joe Biden, because when there was a press conference this morning with the Republicans, and I was on a phone call with some of the Trump team, and they were asked about why they're still saying they're confident. They talked about votes still coming in from some of the red counties. But what the Democrats told me and what we have been seeing today is that even in those counties, Joe Biden is beating Donald Trump in virtually every case, everything that was outstanding, even places where Donald Trump beat Joe Biden heavily in the in-person voting. It was completely different in the mail-in ballot. So they're continuing to feel really good about it. In fact, Mike Memoli, who, of course, has been covering Joe Biden for so many years and is very plugged in, just spoke to an elected Democrat here who said the Biden team has been texting with her and her team and, quote, latest was get ready to celebrate, but then get ready to work because there's a lot to do. So Democrats feeling very positive right now, although they understand the Secretary of State is going to take her time, make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. They thought perhaps there was a chance they would get a final result tonight. That may have to wait until tomorrow, Allison.
Chris, that's the sense from the campaign, from the Democrats. How about folks there in Pennsylvania? I know yesterday when we checked in with you, there were some people protesting or showing their support outside. Have you seen that today, or are people getting tired and are they just going home? What's the mood been like there in Harrisburg?
Yeah, I have a sense that even the people who are sitting home are like hitting refresh on the numbers. That because all throughout the day today, honestly, I was doing that. The numbers kept slowly coming in, you know, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. The advantage to the president kept narrowing. But yes, on the steps behind me, it's quiet now. But we saw 2 pretty big gatherings today. Midday, we saw some of the folks supporting Donald Trump who want to essentially stop the count. They believe what the president said, which is that these votes that are being counted after Election Day are illegal. Of course, they are not. And in fact, the law in Pennsylvania that allows votes that are received until 5 o'clock tomorrow was passed by a bipartisan number of votes, and it was introduced, that particular part of the bill, by a Republican. Then tonight we saw a similar group to what we saw yesterday. Those are folks who want to make sure that the count happens. Every vote counts. That's their message. So I would say, you know, the numbers have not been huge, maybe 100, 200 people, but definitely very enthusiastic. We almost had a few skirmishes today, but by and large, they've just been peaceful, people out, very passionate as they wait to see what the final results here, because, and I don't think we can say this enough, 20 electoral votes, that would put Joe Biden over the top.
Chris Jansing in Harrisburg, Rahema Ellis in Philadelphia. I know you both have been working around the clock tirelessly. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Alex.
For more on the state of the race in Pennsylvania, let's go to Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. Lieutenant Governor, it is so terrific to see you. I have not seen you since you were an up-and-coming mayor in Braddock, Pennsylvania, and I was a reporter at KDKA over a decade ago.
KDKA, oh my gosh, I was just there this morning. I love KDKA.
Everyone doing all right there?
Yeah, always.
Well, we are thrilled to see you. I hope you and your family are doing well. Tell us, how is the counting process going? I think a lot of Americans are watching and thinking, wow, this is taking a long time. But how are things going there? How would you characterize it?
It's not taking a long time because the Republicans refuse to allow us even a 24-hour window to pre-canvass before Election Day. But that being said, this was a vast undertaking, and Pennsylvania has performed superbly throughout all this. I mean, we just had the largest election of our lives in the Commonwealth, and without, really effectively any errors. And we are going to be delivering an accurate result that is going to reflect the true democratic will of our Commonwealth. And I just spoke with someone closely involved in Philadelphia, and they have approximately 80,000 ballots left to count, and a small cache of provisional ballots that were generated when individuals returned their mail-in ballots for spoiling rather than they wanted to vote in person. So just that alone would put Biden over the top in terms of just by the way that they've been breaking out of Philadelphia in terms of a mail-in ballot going for Joe Biden.
Let's talk about this a little bit more. You said it there. You said it earlier that you think Vice President Joe Biden will ultimately take Pennsylvania. For people,
I can say right now, he just went up in the lead in Erie. And, with him leading in Erie, I've said this always, is like whoever wins Erie wins Pennsylvania, whoever wins Pennsylvania is president. And if he doesn't win at this point, I'll swear allegiance to Wawa and run around Harrisburg with an Eagles jersey on. I mean, it's just, it's very encouraging. And the fact that the vice president has pulled ahead in Erie on the strength of the mail-in ballots is an incredibly powerful statement.
I just want to make this very clear because our viewers are not only from around America, but from around the country. And I just want them to understand what you just said. You are Lieutenant Governor by way of Pittsburgh. So that statement that you will pledge allegiance to Wawa and run around in an Eagles jersey, that's insane.
To me personally, yes, it would be devastating to me. So that's something that I would not make lightly. And again, I'm not making, but what I am saying, though, is that the vice president moved ahead in Erie. And Erie, I've always said, is the ultimate bellwether county in Pennsylvania. The President Trump took it in 16, and that's, how that ended. And I'm incredibly encouraged by what I've seen. It's not my role. It's not my job to call it or anything. I'm just giving my opinion. But when I saw just 15 minutes ago that Erie went in the vice president's category, it's like, it's such incredibly good news, from my perspective.
The Trump campaign, as we all know, is filing lawsuits in several states. We have seen plenty of his lawyers in Pennsylvania today.
He could send 1,000 lawyers. Math is math. You can't file a lawsuit against math. I mean, it's coming. And, this idea that you can litigate math is ludicrous. And if that's the best they got, I mean, come on.
So my question was going to be to you, and I think you pretty much answered it. I mean, are you expecting, let's just say this continues to go in the direction you believe it will go in and Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania. Do you expect a lawsuit from the president if he loses? And it doesn't seem like you're particularly concerned about it, but what do you say to that?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, you can sue a ham sandwich. That doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. But also, I want to emphasize all of these ballots that are being counted were received before 8 p.m. on election day. So they're 100% legal. They're not under any specter of any kind of court case. So I don't even know what the basis he would be suing on, other than just the kind of bizarre rants he's been going on in Philadelphia yesterday. So, I mean, let's be clear. This is not the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania decision where ballots can be received up to 3 days through Friday as long as they were postmarked. These aren't those ballots. So this is just the strength of all the votes that were cast on election day. So there is no legal basis. I mean, like I said, you can indict a ham sandwich. That doesn't mean it's going to have any relevance.
And look,
they understand that too.
Yeah,
they understand that too.
It's 2020. We just may see a ham sandwich get indicted. You never know. But one thing we don't want to see, whatever you do, Steelers Nation is please begging you, Lieutenant Governor, do not put on an Eagles jersey, whatever happens.
I'm not going to have to. But like I said, I'm not going to speak above my pay grade here. But I'm just saying that, once I saw Erie slide into the vice president's column, I'm optimistic.
Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, it's terrific to see you and a pleasure to have you on News Now. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Good night.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right, and help you make sense of it all.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Local leaders and election officials are stressing the importance of accuracy over speed in counting ballots. We are still waiting for results in Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Here's what some election officials are saying about their counts and when we could see final results.
We're not concerned with breeding as fast as we can. We are concerned with making sure that we're accurate in what we report. Because this is a very important election in the state of Nevada, it may make the decision for the president.
They'll work as fast as they can and as accurately as they can. We want to make sure it's an accurate count.
Fast is great, and we appreciate fast. We more appreciate accuracy.
Accuracy is going to be the bedrock upon which people will believe the outcomes of these elections, be they on the winning side or the losing side. These people are not involved in voter suppression. I'm telling you, they are doing their jobs every day. It is hard, and we are thankful to them for it, and we're going to work with them to make sure that every legal, lawful ballot is counted.
Were there a few issues regarding absentee ballots? Certainly, but we rose to the occasion and accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, so that I believe that what we have here in Fulton County now will be a blueprint for other jurisdictions to use as they figure out how to handle elections.
We're keeping a close eye on Nevada, where the presidential race is still too close to call right now. President Trump is alleging without evidence that some of the ballots cast there are illegal, while Joe Biden maintains a slight lead. NBC News correspondent Jolene Kent joining us now from Las Vegas. Joe, has the Trump campaign given any evidence to support their claims of illegal ballots in Nevada? I know you and Jacob Soboroff were trying to get answers from them earlier today.
Yes, they have provided absolutely no evidence, only the allegations. We're still waiting to see if that lawsuit that they plan to file in federal court will actually be filed today. We've also not seen any activity on that front. I asked about these allegations to the Clark County registrar because the campaign is alleging that thousands of votes have been miscast or improperly counted. And the registrar told me here at today's press conference that there is no evidence, and also he has received no contact with the campaign over alleged evidence. He's seen nothing, basically. And so his major concern right now is just getting these votes counted. I know a lot of people out there are hoping that Nevada will just hurry up a little bit. But right now they're saying they're going slow because the mail-in vote has been quite, new for them in terms of this level of volume. And so they're counting as methodically and as accurately as possible. But I know a lot of people hoping they'll go a little faster. But here in Clark County, it's so critical because according to the Nevada Secretary of State, 90% of the remaining vote is right here being counted. And we're hoping for more results tomorrow. We're expecting 51,000 votes to be released tomorrow. So we may have a better idea of what the result looks like, Allison.
Joe, if we learn anything in 2020, it is probably going to be patience, right? I'd like to play what the Clark County Registrar of Voters, Joe Gloria, said about the vote count a little bit earlier today.
I think it's important for the entire country to understand that mail ballots on this scale is very new to the state of Nevada. We made a decision here to provide as much access as we possibly could as a result of the pandemic, and so our process has run a little bit slower.
Joe, and just a refresher for people, I mean, they're saying the process is going to be slower, so it looks like it's going to be, at least a day, if not more, before we get some final answers here or get closer to some final answers here?
Yeah, exactly. So, the networks and our organization will call the race when we're comfortable to call it, right? But in terms of getting those actual mail-in votes counted, which is really what we're dealing with here in Clark County, the registrar tells us that it's going to be, the bulk of it will be finally counted by Saturday or Sunday. Now, that's well within their right to take that time to do it. They also have to wait until November 10th to receive any of the mail-in ballots, right, that were either postmarked on or before Election Day. So they're going for it. And today, they only released 14,000 votes. Tomorrow, with that 51,000 that we're expecting, it's interesting because their capacity to count votes is actually 70,000. So they're not quite hitting that capacity, Allison.
Joe, any issues with protests tonight? I know we've seen some of that last night into today. Have you seen any of that this evening?
Yeah, there are a few peaceful protesters here gathered, demonstrating for their candidates. There's a Nevada for Trump flag that I'm looking at here, and some people have been down here. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what we saw earlier behind me. I think the line has now dissipated, but there was a line of people waiting to get into the registrar, and those are not protesters. The people who are waiting, actually waiting to cure their signatures in many cases. So they're here, they've been called to say, your signature didn't match what we have on file, so we'd like you to take a second look at that and resolve that. So that process can actually go until November 12th. It's an extra 2 days after that deadline for receiving any mail-in ballots. So they're taking all the steps here to figure this out. But certainly, yes, anxiety, anticipation, running very, very high here in Clark County here in Las Vegas. A lot of people watching and certainly want to know the results like we all do.
Okay, this is very helpful. Thank you. All right, Joe, I know as soon as you have more, you will let us know when there are any updates. We really appreciate you hanging with us tonight.
Thanks, Allison.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
You are claiming thousands of illegitimate votes here in Nevada. What's the evidence?
You should go in and ask the question of the clerk.
No.
Which you haven't done.
You guys just made the claim. No, in fact, you also said there's no election observer. These are literally election observers. You all are election observers, correct? Are you observing the election here? Thank you very much. And Republicans and Democrats right now? Republicans and Democrats.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
But the president, again, trying to lay